Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart, and today I'm joined by Thomas Kircheis of Pulpo WMS, warehouse management software. And today we are going to talk product market fit. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Predictable Revenue Founder Coaching. Founders, let's be real. Scaling a company is tough. You're juggling product, revenue, hiring, and a million other decisions. But what if you had a proven framework and some expert help to help you navigate the chaos? That's where our coaching program comes in. Whether you're finding your first customers or fine-tuning your go-to-market strategy, we'll help you build a business that scales predictably. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Now, let's get into the episode. Now, you said anything that might be in my office, this coffee mug, how many warehouses might have passed through before it got into my hands?
So yeah, there's a decent chance that on average it goes through 5 warehouses, and a little bit our estimate is that 3 of those warehouses are likely run with pen and paper, right? So you have the, of course, raw material warehouse, and then you have the producer warehouse, and then you have maybe the distribution warehouse, and then you have the actual end to customer shop that might sell it through you. Through either Amazon or not, and he might have shipped that to Amazon FBA or run in his own warehouse and so on and so forth. So that's the average of how many touches it takes before that cup actually gets to you.
That is one thing I had never considered. I've lifted this coffee cup thousands of times, and I've never thought, I wonder how many warehouses it went through. But if I had to guess, it would have only been like one. You make the coffee cup and then you ship the coffee cup. But obviously that's not correct.
Yep. That's probably the phone that you have in your hand, right? Also goes through multiple warehouses. We have a few distributors, for example, that work for the typical iPhone for Apple. And they are usually the second or third one who receives that and who are then the distributor, either to the shops where, of course, it's also warehoused again, or maybe the final customer.
So the idea came from your co-founder who owned a warehouse. And I'm going to ask a question selfishly because it's tangentially related, but what kind of warehouse, what do they have in the warehouse? And then we can get into, why Pulpo and where that came from. But I'm super curious. What was in the warehouse?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a distributor of medical products and consumables. So quite a lot of different types of products. So the customers are either doctors running their office or hospitals, and 20,000 different products. And so you have also different types of, let's say, complexities in your product, right? You have products that have lots and expiration dates. And then you might even have the challenge of certain big customers want at least a durability of 6 months and so on and so forth. You might have, if you order a cell phone, hopefully the merchant who sold it to you knows what serial number was sent out. And all these intricacies add to the complexity. And he brought me in the evaluation process for searching his own solution, which we eventually backed out of and, have created Pulpo. And to be quite frank, so I come from it. It was a consultant for information security and so on. And so naturally a bit, let's say, paranoid about that software also. We thought it would have been a lot easier to build a warehouse management system, and ignoring the fact that some of the biggest ERP companies do not put a warehouse management system into their core solution. Well, so it took us just a little bit longer than what we expected to actually create the first MVP also, and figured out of why the hell weren't there so many startups doing warehouse management systems.
I think everybody who's listening is going, wow, it seems like every episode starts this way.
Yeah. And so on our end, we were ambitious, but also, to be quite frankly, very naive. In the sense of there's so much complexity. You would think, a product comes in, you store it, and then you pick it and pack it and ship it out. But there's actually things happening. Like, it's a live warehouse. There are humans working. There's stuff drops down. You put it into a wrong position if you don't scan it, and so on and so forth. You have issues with connected systems. And so it is... It's impossible to build an MVP in a year, right? To be quite frank. It is just not doable.
So your co-founder had the business, or had the warehouse, brought you in to help. Did you just kind of spec it out and start going, or did you do any external validation?
Yes, we did. First we tested an open source solution just to learn a little bit about warehouse management systems. So what does it contain? And then one of the most important parts for us was that if we build it, it needs to scale. And without wanting to dive into the deep technicalities, but every scan of a position, every scan of a product needs some feedback from the server, right? So there's a lot of back and forth. and we don't want to have one server per customer. So we need to have a multi-tenant solution. So then what technology? We did half a year of a project of what technology should we be using. To give you an example, so let's say, other solutions on the market, they came from a more simple pick and pack solution. Want to grab something, want to scan something, but didn't have in their mind to also take care of lots and expiration dates. And just to add that complexity afterwards is sometimes, if possible at all, very, very difficult. So we took a very, as you can first tell, we took a very long time financially, also as well as just in the time frame to set something up that should work also in the many years to come.
Really interesting. So you had the big conversation. Is this something that the two of you just built for your co-founder's business, or did you go and talk to other business or other warehouses first? Like, hey.
We went out, of course, him, let's say, coming from a more entrepreneurial background, and every friend that we had, every e-commerce, founder that we knew, everyone in logistics, from fans, family, uncle, who do you know? How do you run your warehouse? I mean, it was a few years back. That's why I mentioned that 50% might be very optimistic. I would say like 7 out of 10 were Excel. Well, we print out stuff, and we couldn't believe it because the narrative is, everything's automated, the robots are coming. And the reality of talking with quite sizable companies, I'm talking with a furniture company here who makes, 200 million in revenue and has people printing out their picking papers, right? So the reality was there was a stark difference, while we also couldn't believe on what was pitched to us, which was, first, I'm going to need to send a consultant. He is going to have to analyze your warehouse. He's going to have, this typical enterprise sales.
Going to cost millions of dollars. Yeah.
Yes. And we thought, but why? Because at the end, yes, it is. There's something coming in. There's something going out. Why don't I have a bunch of settings that I can turn on and turn off? And then, it works for everyone. So that was something that we really didn't find. And we had a bunch of sales calls from those solutions. And we thought, this is fascinating. So there must be something. And so we understood there's obviously something going wrong. I mean, it was a long time before COVID when we started, and then COVID all of a sudden now accelerated, of course, e-commerce sales in any case, but also I think in the US, for example, the salaries of warehouse employees have grown more than 50% over the last 2 to 3 years. All of a sudden, it's quite costly to, if you're a merchant, maybe 20, 30% of your costs, your internal costs, are the logistical costs. So it's a big lever of where you can say, if you have a solution, and that is also the nice part, to be honest. Both Philip and I, if you get a warehouse management system and you pay $1, you should get more than $1 out of it, which is difficult to sell in a ERP, for example, right? Where do you make the money out of it? I don't know. But it should be measurable. So in his case, we went from actually, we needed 50 people down to 20.
Wow.
And I mean, that's the bottom line, right? And that's also where we sometimes have conversations like, but Pulpo costs me X. Let's say, I don't know, 20% on top of the warehouse employee salary. Say, yeah, but it makes him 30, 40, 50% faster. So, in the first year, you should have this money back. So all these things came together and we said, you know what? This sounds really interesting. Not knowing how complex it would be. Let's do this.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel exactly the same way about just about everything I've gotten into. Although, in fairness, not quite as complex as warehouse management software. I love the validation process. I'd love to tell me the story of your first customer.
Which one? I want to rate them on there's on a different scale. One is the first one where they say we didn't integrate any systems, which sometimes you even don't do today because they say we have a very archaic system. Let's upload some CSVs. That is still a valid solution. But let's say for the first one let's take the one here from Germany. He's one of my favorites. He found us through on our website. So also today, it's lots of inbound. It's lots of inbound for us. Then the challenge for us is that even though you know that there's an issue inside the warehouse maybe, or you kind of have this as a black box that is difficult to analyze if you're not into logistics, is just finding a solution. What do you search for if you don't know the name warehouse management system? And you don't necessarily know the name warehouse management system. So you search for something like inventory management system. And then you see, this is not it, because inventory management systems help you look for the rotation when you're running out of stock and so on, right? So that's the first part. Like how do we set ourselves up to be found? I had an interview with an e-commerce ERP in Europe. And he said, exactly. They don't have a warehouse management system. Let's talk. And then, we were very, very transparent, as we always are. Like, all right, look, you'll be the first one here with this integration. What do you do? And it's this lovely company in, I think, the 6th generation used to sell, they used to make furniture for the German king. So it's really, really, really far away. And so they continued. And right now they have one of the most sustainable toy businesses. So they sell toys. They have a big store of toys and also some clothing for kids and so on. And a well-established company. And well, they have, I think it's also 40,000 different products inside their warehouse. And their motivator was, I don't know what those products are. Like I kind of look like, here are the stuffed animals, here are the games, here's the, I don't know, jumpy toy. And that was his motivation. So we got together. He's also entrepreneurial, comes from an entrepreneurial background. He said, I like you guys, let's try this out. And then that was our first setup, doing an inventory. And I was sweating a bit to, count those 40,000 different products, hoping that nothing would, of course we test everything like crazy. Everything is automated. We have about 100 updates a year. So it needs to work. It really needs to work. Yeah. That was quite a few years ago. And then he went live. And of course, this, first Stripe payment that came in was quite magical. It still is today. It still is today every time.
100%. I love seeing I don't get the individual payments anymore, but I see like the payments coming across from Stripe. And I'm like, that's a big chunk of money. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And we like that it creates value for them because they can cancel us anytime. Because if they didn't see that, the dollars, euros, whatever currency they send us is worth it, they don't need to continue. And that's really nice. And that's also what motivates, I think, the team behind it.
So first customer inbounded to you, which is amazing. And like not a small customer either. I'm like, when you said kids German toys, and I was like, I'm going to try and guess this. And I have a guess. I'll tell you afterwards because I don't know if you want to share on the recording. But I'm curious, so if your first customer inbounded to you, where did your next customers come from?
And that's where we talk ICP and focus or lack of focus is. It is constantly different. So for example, we have a Shopify integration, right? So you're a merchant, you're one of those 2 million merchants using Shopify. You more often than not have physical products and you search for a solution. So you might look for, best WMS for Shopify. And then we show up pretty high, just from organic traffic. Then, so from the very beginning, it was always international. It started, Europe and United States and Canada, of course. That was really a back and forth. I don't really know which one, but it's 50-50 right now.
Sources, they just keep inbounding to you. You put your website up, you hung up your shingle, and you're like, that's it, and nothing else.
We're on the Shopify marketplace, for example, right? There's a plugin in the Shopify marketplace. But then we have some conversation here and there. But for us, really the key learning for us is when we have the conversation with the customer, he might have come through a certain channel. We can see it on the website, but that's not really accurate. It's always being very annoying about, how did you find us? What did you search for? What was the exact term? Do you remember? And to a point where they're sometimes like, I just don't know, man. I just, yeah.
But let me see, give you $50.
Yeah, it goes to that point because a large part of this issue of this crazy fact that the majority is run with pen and paper is the lack of knowledge. So how do we educate? How do we write? We write articles. We write lots of input, lots of blogs about what are the issues in peak time, how to and so on and so forth. Right? To somehow get this very abstract search term that they might be looking for to a warehouse management systems website, which they never have even heard about that term. So that is one of our key measures that our team has been working a lot on, to identify that, look on the boards of what people are searching for, and somehow get these terms into informational blog, a post on LinkedIn, et cetera, to then capture that traffic and get them to our site. But we've done many things. We've done massive outbound also.
And so I'm curious about massive outbound because it doesn't sound like it worked very well. So first channel was inbound. You hung up your website and people found you. It seems like one of those complex things where there's a ton of people from an outbound perspective. There's a ton of people that could be involved, but identifying the right 6 people within the organization is extremely difficult.
So there's certain things that help us identify, and then you can dumb that down to, all right, so this is target food on Shopify to make something up, right? Then how do you find it out, right? You mentioned before, like enriching it with certain tools on other people. Do you find them all on LinkedIn? Well, probably not, especially the head of supply chain probably doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile. Chances are in the United States, it's much more likely than in any other country. And then it goes on and on, right? And then how do you target them? And then how do you nurture them? How do you feed them? Some just download something, but they might not want to have an initial conversation with you, or they don't react. So you put them into a nurturing pipeline and sending them hopefully valuable information on how to improve their warehouse, to then at some point, they feel, you know what, I really need to take care about this issue now. So there's many different ways, but as you said, we were approached by a rather large fund that also runs an outbound business in the enterprise software sector, to massification of outbound, both email and call and so on. It has been of mixed results. For us, the conversion, the conversion rate, of course, from inbound is a multiple higher than that. Nonetheless, I think we've tested it for half a year, and we were a bit earlier, maybe. Yeah. And one of the things is also this chicken egg on how many comparable customers do you have that you can just give them a reference call to. So for us, it's really important that any customer that we have is open for a reference call from anyone else, from the same area, best case, just to have a free conversation. We don't want to be in it. And this combo maybe might have not lined up at that point, where we didn't have enough success cases posted where they could find themselves on the website. So for us, the outbound process was okay-ish. If we would have had to pay for it, which we didn't, because they did it for free for us because they wanted to.
I know who these guys are. I've talked to their founder before. Yeah.
Amazing company. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool machine they have.
It is. And I'm certain it works fantastic. In our area, I don't know. Maybe we're just not good enough.
If it's the people I'm thinking of, they have a pretty large weapon in terms of like the way their approach. You go extremely wide. You're going to touch everybody at very high volume. So two things. One, I'm a big fan of like targeting is way more important than messaging or like AI personalization or anything like that. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I have been responsible for sending millions of emails a month on behalf of a customer before. I'm a huge fan of targeting, and I think there's a bunch of ways you could do a lot smarter targeting and like carving up your market like this. And then two, if it's only 6 months, the first year sucks with outbound. Candidly, what is it, middle of March 2025 right now, we are in the process of shutting down our outbound the outsourced SDR side of our business. We're still doing email stuff and founder coaching, but the outsourced stuff isn't working. One of the reasons, it's not that it isn't working, it's an impossible investment. So say you came to me and said, hey, I want to outsource SDR. I'm like, great, it's going to be 5 to 10K a month. You're like, cool, you try it, you give me about 5K a month for 6 months, right? It's produced the results you have. You're probably not happy. Now, if you had done the same and you had invested in hiring a person and building the systems, you probably give yourself a little bit more time. You probably say, we're going to give this person a year. And the thing with outbound is you're reaching people in any different buying mode, right? So if you think about the audience, your target market, the people that are the lowest in the funnel, the people that have pain that is so significant, they're like, I'm going to do a Google search and see if I can solve this pain. That's the very, very bottom of the funnel. With outbound, you're reaching the entire funnel. And so you're only reaching a small percentage of those people. And so with outbound, the math just takes longer to work out. One of the most frustrating parts of like running the outsourcing side, I did it for 13 years, give or take. Probably more like we started with like email only prospecting, and then we started doing like full stack SDR in 2018. But one of the hardest parts, and even with the email side, people would be a customer for 6-12 months and then they'd cancel. They're like, oh, it was good. And we just closed a couple of deals, but it wasn't enough to be ROI positive. And of course, any salesperson in this context would say, oh no, keep using us. It's going to get better. And the math it's one of those things that keeps compounding, but you just have to keep putting pressure on the pipeline. And the number of customers that would stay for 12 months and then leave for a year and then come back 12 to 18 months later was infuriating. They're like, yeah, you were right. Now we want to get it going again. And then 6 months later, they're like, why is it taking so long? And I'm like, do you remember nothing? I'd love to zoom in on that moment where you realized, I think I got product market fit here. I think there's something special.
I think so. There's something very maybe special about the warehouse, where everyone that runs a warehouse thinks he's doing the best he can, right? He's the expert. So while you warehouse, you inbound, you pick, pack, there are lots of creative people who, no, but we do it this way. And so I think one point, just to sorry to deviate, for us, while we have some external investors in Pulpo, but no VCs, being lean was always very important. So last year when we decided, we want to make this a profitable company and grow it from profitability, this customer acquisition cost part, of course, right, was very important. And we linger above 2. So, right, for every dollar that we spend, we get more than 2 of recurring revenue per month, which I guess it's quite good.
That's extremely good.
Efficient. So one of the things is of course, like, how much time do we spend into getting a customer? And we saw, while the time frame is, the average I think is 2 to 3 months, which is quite long, but our time spent actively is around 2.5 hours with a customer. So you have half an hour first conversation, qualification call. Does it fit more or less? What's the surrounding systems? Yes, no. That's a 90% idea of could it work, could it not work? Then, right, also regarding the different, let's say, teams or people that we need for these conversations. That is a bit more high level. You need to know 3/4 of the system of what goes on in the warehouse. And for anything else, you can say, this is really expert talk. Let's have that in the next conversation. And then you do the demo call. And once we saw that you have this conversation and already in the second conversation, you were entering into what's actually the pricing. Okay, this seems to make a lot of sense. That was when we felt we have this, sorry to generalize, but this typical e-commerce merchant, we know his pain points up front, and of course listening to him, like why now, right? Why do you reach out now? Why is it now a topic for you that you want to look at for a warehouse? Why the hell not 5 years ago when you started the business?
Right? What took you so long?
Yes, but that is of course also key info for us, and then to give them, look, this is how you save here. This is how you save. This is going to work for you. Is it? So to get like all these, inbound, warehousing, picking, packing, I think that is a few years back when we thought, all right, for that ICP, we're good, right? And then of course there's lots of ICPs. So you have the fulfillers who, of course, they're the professionals, right? They look into, shaving every last second of the processes, where we say, for them, we go into our warehouse optimization is better, or routing optimization is better. Or for larger companies that have same products, we take care of a few warehouses from the world's largest online mattress company, where they send out, thousands of mattresses a day. So you have to label them really quickly. So there's always, our product board has, I don't know how many to-dos going forward. Our system is never going to end, but that was like, all right, there's lots of e-commerce customers who use Shopify, who have ShipStation. I think we're a good fit for them. That was when we first saw, like, second conversation, already talking about what would it cost? What's the setup? How do you set it up? How much I can do myself? When we thought,
we got this.
For that one, we got this.
That's amazing. It's such a good feeling of like, I built the thing, now I got it out in the world, and people love the thing. People get value out of the thing. I don't think there's nothing, to me at least, there isn't anything that's much more satisfying than that in a professional context, than like, I built something and it's producing an extreme amount of value for somebody. So much so that they're willing to give me some of their money. Like, that to me is just the greatest.
Yeah, totally. And you also, right, sometimes you just grow with them. And that's also amazing to see.
Cool. It just kind of connected to me that I think you could make the argument that you're helping raise the wages of these warehouse workers because they can do 50% more, then they have 50% more value. You can pay them a fraction of that.
And more. That will reduce for you the rotation of your warehouse staff, because there's two things. One is, for example, inside our own warehouse, they used to walk 10 miles per day, 9, and all of a sudden they only walk 2.5. So they're also a lot less exhausted at the end of the day. They won't get, a slap on the back because they send out the wrong product because, well, with the system, you don't make any errors. So there's lots of really like keeping the staff, having a happy staff, of implementing a warehouse management system. And ultimately, yeah, it's a good argument to be made. Then they should also participate in doing twice the packages with the same stuff. Right? What's also funny, because everything comes transparent, we also have customers that say, hey, here's the retired person who just wants to earn a little bit of extra money. So he does 20 pickings a day, but for everyone it's transparent, he's just helping out and it's not a black box anymore. So of course he gets paid a lot less than the one who's really aiming for it and running for it and really performing inside the warehouse. So yeah, that's interesting.
That's really interesting. It's fascinating once you get into that kind of workforce labor automation element of it, where you are playing kind of puppet master in some ways. Fascinating. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us. I really enjoyed getting a chance to learn a little bit more about Pulpo. If people are curious, where can they find out more about your tool and yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Thomas Kircheis. Reach out there. Glad to connect. And also through our website, www.pulpo WMS, like the octopus in Spanish, PULPO WMS.com. Reach us out. Well, we always also, and we really mean that, also if you still run it by paper and you say you're too small today, we're happy to have a half an hour conversation on how you can also maybe with your tools stay that way. I just had one with a very interesting guy who just created a fashion label. I said, eventually, but I said, no, not today, not today. Today you go print it out and we have a conversation in 6 months. Because it's enough. Let's see how this goes, and take it from there, and then we can. Because there's many tweaks that you can do before. Also, you maybe need a warehouse management system. But as I said, like once you have like a 2-person staff inside your warehouse, that is already a point where you could look at it, because you might do a lot with 2 people, and you don't need 4 if you have a nice tool. So yeah, really happy to help out there, because if we all buy online, we all want the correct product. So. Everybody benefits.
100%. Fewer returns.
Fewer returns. Yeah. That's important.
I love it. Thomas, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch you all next time.